The federal government has been asking the public for feedback on proposed legislation to create a trusted digital identity system. The first thing that would worry me is that they've put trusted at the front of it. Whenever anyone uses words like freedom or trusted or we're not going to rip you off and use this information to con you, something in me bridles, bristles, the spider senses start tingling and I think, come on, what's going on? The aim is for Australians to use it to prove their identity when accessing public services. This piece of legislation has largely slipped under the radar since it was unveiled on October the 1st. There's nothing to worry about, don't slip it under a radar. There's a radar here. Why did you get that radar? To make sure nothing's attacking us and fucking with us? Well, slip it under it. Slip it under it. The government's proposed digital identity system promises a safe, secure and convenient way to prove who you are online every time you access government services. In other words, it aims to streamline your experience by avoiding the need to repeatedly identify yourself when accessing a range of government services. One thing we know for sure about government is their every action is motivated by our convenience. This is for you. It's going to make it easier for you to be corralled into these camps. It's going to be easier for you to have this helmet of virtual reality placed on your head so you're basically a Matrix energy battery like you've always wanted. I must say, I've been pretty gullible myself when it comes to like giving my face to my tech and stuff just so I can download an app quicker so I can manage an imaginary football team. You know, like I'm always just, oh, who cares, just click it twice. We sort of walk, don't we, face first, blinking like imbeciles into the dystopia being formed around us. Currently, you can create a digital identity using a MyGov ID to access 80 government services. This allows you to link your data across services such as Medicare, Centrelink and the Australian Tax Office for your convenience to pay your taxes. The new legislation proposes an expansion of powers to outsource the process of identity verification to approved Australian businesses. Remember that rule? That the point of government is to transfer public money, your money, into private hands. That's what's happening again here. It's not even going to be state controlled. It's better to give it to these trusted, what's it called again? Trusted servants, these trusted lover doves, these Mary Poppins tech geniuses. Presumably this could lead to an expansion of acceptance of the digital ID system so it can be used more widely than just to access government services. Oh no, you don't think, do you, that you've given all your information for the Medicare and to pay your taxes, and then all of a sudden other people are using your data? Hold on a minute, let me call Ed Snowden. Ed, it says here we can't trust reliable government sources and that they will use corruption to outsource the information and sell out data. What do you mean this is a glass? Hello, Ed? Have they got to you, Ed? Ed! This would be done by linking your MyGov account on the MyGov ID smartphone app. I don't like MyGov either. It's MyGov. This is just MyGov. We can rely on MyGov. MyGov, they're locking us down. MyGov, they're doing it for their own safety. Like, your government ain't your mate and provide an existing identity document, such as a passport, driver's license or birth certificate, to an identity provider. Under the proposal, any Australian business can apply to join the Trusted Digital Identity Framework, or TDIF, to become an identity accreditor. The legislation would establish an agency to oversee these accreditations and to govern how data will be handled in the scheme. Oh well, as long as they're completely reliable, we've got nothing to worry about. In fact, don't call it a scheme, this hoax, trick. Might as well call it a shenanigan. But this goes against all the standard advice about not linking all your personal information, such as tax history and medical history, as it can lead to mass analytics, behaviour profiling, targeted advertising, and more, as we saw in the Cambridge Analytica scandal. I suppose if something looks like a mass data compilation, then it probably is that. The proposal also comes amid the ongoing datafication of the population, which has been turbocharged by the COVID pandemic. Digital rights advocacy groups have already voiced alarm at the mass collection, collation and storage of personal data, often on a mandatory basis using hastily implemented platforms such as contact tracing apps. It is opaque on details, particularly with regard to the proposed use of new technologies such as biometric matching, using biological characteristics to identify an individual, and automated decision making. In a sense, it's downloading your data, your identity, into the hands of a machine that will ultimately be ungovernable. In a way, we see this already with bureaucracy that's implemented by the hands and minds of humans. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. It's the system. Computer says no, all that stuff. The more that this becomes automated, the less we'll be able to participate. It becomes like a kind of God in the way that it functions in your life, in that no human authority can intervene or control it, that the system has started, that once that first domino's been toppled, there is an inevitability to the outcome, and it won't lead to more freedom. It won't lead to more convenience for you. It will lead to more freedom for the state and more convenience for the state. It potentially creates a honeypot of personal data. I don't like the term honeypot. I don't like the idea of them sort of scooping out the honey of my personal data and then sort of all drizzling down their chin as they use my personal data to exploit me. Stored in a centralised database that would offer a tempting target for cyber criminals or hostile nations. You don't need to worry about cyber criminals and hostile nations. The people you're giving it to you want to worry about. The government has promised the data will be private and secure and protected by strict security protocols. Oh, okay then, good night. But government databases have suffered numerous previous hacks, such as the cybersecurity incident last year that led to the Australian Defence Force's recruitment records being offline for 10 days. Numerous. They're not even willing to put a specific number on it. If you're so good with data, can you tell us how many attacks have been? Oh, we don't know, the data's not that good. It's probably 5, 9, 102. Can't be sure really, it's complicated maths. It's definitely a number though. It wasn't a letter or a colour. It was a numeral. We can put it down into a number. It wasn't like a purple. It wasn't an ABC. It wasn't a little bird. It's somewhere between 1 and where numbers end. It's not clear how the trustworthiness of third-party identity verification providers who store this data will be verified and guaranteed, or what recourse will be available in the event of a breach. That's because there isn't any. The establishment of a centralised oversight authority is an archaic approach that disempowers individuals from owning their personal information. What that is a backward step, and we're seeing more and more of this. There's always this assumption of progress, that things are improving, we're getting smarter, we're getting clever, things are getting fairer, more equality, less prejudice, bigotry and judgment. But actually, these are very regressive steps. It's almost like there was an intermediary period around the 60s to the 90s where people were empowered, and now there is the technological means to reassert tyranny. The aesthetics have altered. There's no longer like really scary badges and marches and flags, although there are some. There's just much more slow, bureaucratic, technocratic kind of dampening down of freedom, a slow immolation of personal choice. The broader context here is not one of legislation or technological architecture. It's a social question of collectively defining what a digital Australia should look like in the long term and making it one that serves the public interests. Citizens should be able to own and govern their personal information with confidence both now and in the future. Silky Carlo, director of Big Brother Watch. The idea of digital ID and vaccination checks could easily lead to a health apartheid that few would expect of a democratic country. Digital IDs would lead to sensitive records spanning medical work, travel and biometric data about each and every one of us being held at the fingertips of authorities and state bureaucrats. Like when you see something like this on Black Mirror or in China, you immediately decry it. But can you see how it's incrementally being brought about under the auspices of crisis response? We've got to respond to this crisis. It's necessary. It's better for you. It's easier for you to tax your records. All they've done is worked out that they can't blatantly say, we're doing this because it's easier for us and this is how we're going to control you. But in the same way that Foucault would say that all legislation and law is underwritten by the potential of state violence, we're now beginning to see how this sort of harmless bureaucratic language is actually menacing. It's a behavioural herding and a controlling, a dampening down of freedom, an incremental tyranny imposed by 1,000 cuts. This dangerous plan would normalise identity checks, increase state control over law-abiding citizens and create a honeypot for cyber criminals. Why are they so interested in these honeypots? Digital IDs would lead to sensitive records spanning medical work, travel and biometric data about every one of us at the fingertips of the authorities and state bureaucrats. I don't know how you feel in Australia at the moment, but my hunch is that you're not feeling like you want to hand over more authority control and private data to the state that in collusion with private business interests can be used against you to impede upon your freedoms and maximise the profit that can be extracted from you and the amount of control that can be exerted over you. I don't know. I mean, I've never thought I was a mind reader, but I feel that that's what you might feel. Let me know in the comments. If you're not convinced yet, why not have a look at some propaganda?
Digital ID from Australia Post
Actually, this sounds quite jolly. I like it.
is the easy and secure way
She's waving. She seems okay.
to prove who you are.
Prove who you are. I mean, prove who I am. Who to? Who do I have to prove who I am to all of a sudden? What's this dynamic? Prove who you are.
Like most of us, there's many times where Lucy needs to prove who she is.
Why Why? Why's Lucy got to prove who she is? Why can't she just get on with her life? I believe she's Lucy. Just you be the best Lucy you can be. Now, prove it. Yeah.
Digital ID is designed to simplify this process.
All nice and simple. All nice and simple down the old leisure camp where you sit nicely on an iron bunk bed proving who you are.
Imagine Lucy being able to easily verify her identity when opening a savings account.
Oh, lovely. She can prove her identity. I also don't like the way she's existing within this thing that's emitting some kind of death ray orb around itself, all contained with deadly information. Even its own propaganda film is suggesting that it's a sort of an awful carcinogenic death trap.
Proving her age and even accessing government services.
Oh, lovely. Good old government services, for example. How to not be able to go anywhere service.
On Monday, Lucy applies for a new savings account so she can start saving for her overseas holiday.
Good luck getting there, love.
While filling in her online bank application with a participating bank, she uses digital ID to verify her identity.
Lucy need to wake up, don't she? Like, she's sat there, she's blindly walking into this dystopia with a pot plant beside her. Lucy, wake up! Prove who you are! I'd want you to prove who you are. A free person.
She can easily share her verified identity using her phone the next time she needs to prove who she is.
She's got this life of just proving who she is all the time. Very insecure existence.
Wherever digital ID is accepted, there's no longer the need for her to constantly re-enter and verify information.
Oh, constantly re-entering and verifying information. It's better if I just split my skull open and show myself to the government, and I don't have to worry about all this tippity-tappity old fingers.
So she can get on with the things she enjoys doing.
Moronically watering plants. Ah, good, I can just water the plants in my cell.
When providing personal details in the past, Lucy has been asked to share more information than necessary. Digital ID lets her share only the information required,
With an authoritarian government body.
with the peace of mind that her identity is protected.
What level of intelligence would you be at if you watched this and went, oh, that's good. It's, Lucy's personal circumstances are greatly enhanced by this invasive technology that demands Lucy yield her personal sovereignty to the techno-corporate state. Where would you be on the scale? What the kind of head injury is that?
Verify your way and save time with digital ID. Free to download from the App Store and Google Play Store.
Convenience and saving time, isn't it? That's what it's offered around this leisurely language of convenience and time saving and labour saving. It sort of shows how we've become like managerial, even in our own minds, that we're all about saving time and convenience. Like that every moment of every day you're supposed to be doing something of some, I don't know, monetizable or there's some value to something else. What's happening to us? What's going on? That little propaganda film, as well as the information conveyed in that article, suggests to me that what we should focus on is a kind of determined control over individual freedom, determined control over community freedom, the organisation of new groups that are free from the intervention of government and corporate control, that are truly democratic and led by the people affected by that power. Wherever we are in the world, we have an obligation now to commence with a movement where our interests can be protected, carried and communicated. This has become quite quickly an obligation. It's gone from a kind of a preference to, wow, otherwise we're all going to be blithely strolling like Lucy into a dystopic world where we really are just the simian vehicle for our own phones and data, that we are like the kind of butler for our information, that our personal autonomy, our ability to be spontaneous and free in the moment is entirely negated by these systems that, as well as being machines themselves, make us more machine-like.